I'm really thrilled to share this announcement with you, the launch of DxO NIK 9. Now, NIK photo editing software, for those who aren't familiar, is a suite of powerful applications, 8 in all, that can be used as standalone editors or as plugins with Photoshop, Adobe Lightroom Classic, Affinity Photo, and DxO's own Photo Lab. The NIK collection includes Silver FX, Color FX, Viveza, Define, Analog FX, HDR FX, Pre-Sharpener and Sharpener output. I'll go into a bit more detail later on, but this latest iteration comes with some new features. At a glance, we have a couple of new masking tools, depth masks and AI masks, color grading, chromatic shift, glass effect, halation, blending mode, and some really welcome workflow improvements. So first, we get a couple of masking options, depth masks in Color FX, which analyze your image and generates a detailed depth map. Now, what's a depth map? Well, I confess, I don't know exactly how it's done. It's all AI to me, but it allows you to make adjustments to different areas of the image based on their distance from the camera position. You can then blend those areas with sliders rather than using manual masks. AI masks. With AI masks added across the board, subject selection is really simplified. So once you've applied a tool or effect, an AI mask can be created, and then you click on the subject you want to adjust or draw a bounding box to define the area. I'll note here that these AI tools are not generative, they're merely AI guided. Simply put, unlike the generative tools, say Adobe is packing into their products, these masks remain local, to your computer that is, and it goes without saying, aren't adding or subtracting from the image other than what you're inputting and controlling. And I'll add a bit more on this later, but importantly, these are not meant to replace NIK's excellent viewpoint technology. That's been one of its most compelling tools for the last 2 decades or so. It's still there and it's as useful as ever. Color grading in Color FX. That adds a color grading wheel that includes independent control over shadows, midtones, highlights, and global color, so you can adjust ranges individually or you can lock them together if you like. A Chromatic Shift tool creates an analog ink misalignment effect, a sort of a bad printer tool, if you will. Glass effect comes to Analog FX, which includes an extensive collection of glass-based distortion effects and controls for scale, distortion, and smoothness. Halation comes to Color FX. Now, if you're familiar with various video film emulation editors, I've reviewed Dehancer, for instance, which includes this effect. The halation tool recreates the sort of reddish glow around edges seen in vintage film. Controls for this cinematic effect include brightness, radius, intensity, hue, saturation, and opacity. Blending modes come to Color FX and Analog FX. There's 18 modes, including multiply, screen, overlay, and color. These really, I'd say, expand the creative options in these apps. As far as workflow improvements, this is perhaps, I would say, the most helpful addition. And I think it will be welcomed by all users. Right on top, this is the big one, hovering over presets now offers instant real-time preview when you're browsing presets, so you don't need to sit into one to view the actual effect. That's a long overdue improvement. It's excellent. NIK really is, at this point, a professional suite of plugins because, as I said at the start, they're not just standalone applications. You can use them with the photo editing app of your choice. So that's the technical details of NIK 9. Now, if you'll indulge me, I want to add my personal history with NIK along with that of the software itself. My initial interest in NIK was drawn by the photography community's enthusiasm for Silver FX Pro. When I began resurrecting my 80s Vancouver project about 15 years ago, I think it was, to produce limited edition prints, lithographs, and most recently a book, I used Silver FX in the final editing process. After digitization of the original images, which were shot on medium format film. With NIK Silver FX, I was able to recreate the original feeling of the images created in the wet darkroom, now printed on inkjet and, in the case of posters, Heidelberg presses, with the latter using the duotone process. It looks beautiful. In some cases, Silver FX made it possible to uncover detail that had never been seen before with those wet darkroom processes, developer choice, toning, bleaching, etc. And I'll say more about that in a minute. I was a little bit late to adopt NIK, I would say, since I bought into the app around 2012 when Google acquired the software. I think I paid somewhere around $125 Canadian. Google, if I can say that, did a bit of tinkering, but as I recall, offered it up for free before losing interest completely. And that's where DxO stepped up to save this fantastic and I'd say indispensable technology for any photographer. And here, my fellow Nikon shooters will appreciate this tidbit of NIK history. Note that the collaboration between NIK and Nikon, or Nikon if you prefer, around 2004 led to the development of one of the app's standout features, viewpoint technology, which I mentioned earlier. Control points that you can use to target and adjust individual areas and tones of images with a toolbox of actions, color, structure, highlights, shadows, and so on. With these latest iterations, we now have AI-assisted masks, a rate edition that shows that DxO are keeping pace, but I'm not going to abandon viewpoint. That's a different stroke, so to speak, and control points are, to my mind, still one of the best reasons to invest in the software. When DxO acquired NIK in 2017, again, I was a bit slow to adopt their considerable improvements. In fact, I only bought into the new NIK last year, and boy am I glad I did. I've really been missing a lot. As I said, in regard to DxO Photo Lab a few weeks ago, I think it was, I'm not a big fan of analog presets, despite my long career in commercial film photography. We always went out of our way to avoid dust and scratches on our images and spotted out the inevitable imperfections. So, I'm not a regular user of analog effects. Having said that, these are all interesting tools to have at our disposal, and who's to say a job might not call for a distressed photo look. There's so much more to love in this suite of editing tools for both color and black and white. As I said, it was the black and white tools, Silver FX, that drew this old darkroom denizen to NIK in the first place. The film emulations, grain profiles are really, really effective. No, They're not an exact match to a trained eye, but they are very well executed, and I'm not at all reticent to use them in my professional work, especially for printing. And I say that as someone who, after many years doing so, has no desire to go back into a dark and smelly cave. Been there, done that. So, whether I'm digitally restoring my vintage work or converting my digitally captured images today, Silver FX is my go-to application. As you can probably tell, Silver FX is still my favorite NIK application. It's worth the price of the collection alone. And speaking of, the price for the whole collection of 8 utilities is $179.99 US. If you're updating from version 7 or 8, that runs you $100. I think that's a bargain. In summary, I'm glad to see DxO continuing to build on the solid NIK foundation. They, I think, deserve our respect. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if this is your first time to my channel, please do consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss more content from me. In the meantime, cheers, take care, we'll see you later.